In this episode, we delve into a gripping case where a stepson's hidden affair spiraled into an obsession, culminating in a grisly murder. Let's explore the details. Maria Sullivan, a vibrant 38-year-old, was renowned for her artistic flair and generous heart. Living in the charming town of Summerville, South Carolina, known for its picturesque downtown and the annual Flower Town Festival, Maria was a beloved figure. As a freelance artist, she crafted stunning paintings and sculptures, which she showcased and sold at local art fairs and galleries. Maria shared her life with her husband, David Sullivan, and his 18-year-old son, Tyler. David, a retired naval officer, had been married to Maria for a decade. Despite their 20-year age difference, their love for each other was evident. They first met at an art show featuring Maria's work, where David was captivated by her creativity and zest for life. Maria strived to create a warm and loving home. Balancing her art career with household duties and caring for Tyler, she took on a motherly role, especially after the loss of Tyler's biological mother a few years prior. Although their relationship was strained, Maria hoped they would eventually bond. Outside of her artistic pursuits, Maria was passionate about reading and gardening. She adored classic literature, often quoting Jane Austen and the Bronte sisters. Her garden was a riot of colors, reflecting her love for nature. Maria was also deeply involved in her community, volunteering at the Somerville Public Library and participating in neighborhood events. In the days leading up to her tragic death, Maria was excited about a new project, a series of sculptures inspired by South Carolina's wildlife and landscapes. She planned to unveil these at the upcoming Flower Town Festival and was also looking forward to a small family getaway aimed at mending her relationship with Tyler. Described by friends as charismatic and warm-hearted, Maria was known for hosting dinner parties, creating a welcoming atmosphere with her delicious cooking. Despite life's challenges, she remained optimistic and dreamed of opening her own art gallery one day. Her untimely death was a severe blow to all who knew her, cutting short her vibrant life. On the morning of September 12, 2012, Somerville was just waking up. The day was cool and clear, with the sun shining brightly. Around 8:30 a.m., Maria's neighbor, Lilith Carter, 25, walked over to the Sullivan house. Lilith, who was working on a true crime novel based on real events, often visited Maria for discussions. Finding it unusual that Maria was not answering her door, Lilith decided to check the art studio in the backyard. As she approached, Lilith noticed the studio door was ajar. Upon entering, she was met with a horrific sight: Maria lying on the floor, covered in blood. The room was in disarray, with broken sculptures and shattered glass scattered everywhere. The scene showed clear signs of a violent struggle. Horrified, Lilith's hands trembled as she quickly dialed 911. The operator guided her to stay outside and wait for the police. Still in shock, Lilith complied and stood in the yard, trying to process the horrifying scene she had just witnessed. The police arrived swiftly. As they began their investigation, they observed a heavy sculpture near Maria's body, clearly used as the murder weapon. The blood-soaked room and the chaotic state of the studio suggested a frenzied and brutal attack. The detectives noted the severity of the violence and began collecting evidence. Detectives Martin Coco and Julia Montez, seasoned investigators known for their meticulous work, led the team. The crime scene was a grim sight: blood smeared on the walls, and broken sculptures and glass strewn across the floor. Maria's body lay amidst the wreckage, showing signs of severe blunt force trauma. The detectives immediately began their investigation, securing the area to preserve evidence. They utilized advanced forensic techniques, including fingerprint dusting and blood pattern analysis, to piece together the events leading up to the murder. They collected blood and hair samples for DNA analysis and photographed the scene from every angle. A torn piece of cloth and a broken piece of jewelry were also recovered as potential evidence. As the day progressed, the neighborhood was abuzz with a mix of fear and curiosity. The police conducted door-to-door interviews and asked anyone who had seen or heard anything unusual to come forward. Additional officers arrived to aid in the investigation, and the media began to converge, drawn by the shocking nature of the crime. Local news stations, including WCI and the Post and Courier, reported live from the scene, heightening the sense of urgency. By the end of the day, the police had gathered a significant amount of evidence, but many questions remained unanswered. Who could have committed such a brutal act and why? Detectives Coco and Montez faced a challenging investigation ahead, determined to find justice for Maria. David Sullivan, Maria's husband, became the initial suspect. At 58, David's disciplined demeanor was a product of his naval career. Despite his stern exterior, he deeply loved Maria and was protective of his family. On September 12, after discovering Maria's body, the police brought David in for questioning. Detectives Coco and Montez interviewed David, who appeared calm but visibly shaken by the news of his wife's death. He explained that he had been away on a business trip in Boston, providing hotel receipts and check-in/check-out confirmations to support his alibi. The interview lasted several hours as the detectives probed into his relationship with Maria and any possible enemies she might have had. David mentioned tensions between Maria and Tyler, his son. He revealed that Tyler had struggled with accepting Maria as a mother figure following his biological mother's death. Despite these challenges, David hoped the family would eventually reconcile. The police also conducted a thorough search of the Sullivan home for additional evidence. David Sullivan's belongings, including his car, were thoroughly examined by the police, but no incriminating evidence was found. They also reviewed David's phone records and interviewed his colleagues, all of which corroborated his alibi. Despite maintaining his composure throughout the investigation, David was visibly strained by the situation. He expressed his profound grief and disbelief that anyone could harm Maria and remained fully cooperative with the police, providing them with any information they needed. Meanwhile, local news outlets, including WCI and the Post and Courier, reported extensively on the unfolding investigation. The community was shocked to learn that David had become a suspect, as many knew him as a kind and loving husband who would never harm his wife. Despite his solid alibi, the police were determined to scrutinize every aspect of David's involvement to ensure no detail was overlooked. Detectives Martin Coco and Julia Montez meticulously re-examined the crime scene and rechecked all aspects of his alibi, striving to leave no stone unturned. As the investigation progressed, it became evident that David was not connected to Maria's murder. The focus shifted to other potential suspects. Although David was cleared, the burden of losing Maria and facing suspicion weighed heavily on him. On September 15, 2012, just 3 days after the discovery of Maria's body, a light drizzle covered Somerville, mirroring the town's somber mood. Around noon, Detective Martin Coco made a startling discovery while reviewing evidence from the crime scene. Among Maria's art supplies, he found a collection of sexually explicit love letters. These letters revealed a secret affair between Maria and an unidentified individual, detailing intimate encounters and conflicting emotions. Detectives Coco and Montez carefully examined the letters, recognizing their significance as a breakthrough in the case. The letters suggested a motive for Maria's murder. Detective Coco convened a meeting with the investigative team to discuss the letters' content and implications. They realized they needed to identify the person involved in the affair to understand the full context and potential motives. Officer Montez spearheaded the effort to gather more information. She interviewed Maria's close friends and neighbors, inquiring if anyone knew about the affair. Many were shocked and unaware of Maria's involvement with anyone other than her husband, David. The revelation created a stir in the small, conservative Southern community, fueling gossip and speculation. Forensic experts analyzed the letters for fingerprints and DNA. They also reviewed Maria's phone records and email history in search of clues about her secret lover. The investigation was comprehensive, with every detail meticulously scrutinized. On the same rainy afternoon, while examining Maria's phone, the detectives uncovered a series of explicit text messages and call logs that led them to suspect Tyler, Maria's 18-year-old stepson. The messages hinted at a complex and strained sexual relationship between Maria and Tyler. Some texts were vague, while others explicitly detailed their encounters. This revelation was shocking. Tyler had been perceived as a troubled teenager, but the depth of his relationship with Maria was unexpected. The detectives knew they had to handle the situation delicately to uncover the truth. The discovery of the love letters and text messages shifted the investigation's focus, providing a clearer direction. The detectives prepared to interrogate Tyler again, this time armed with new, compelling evidence that could reveal the secrets behind Maria's tragic death. Tyler Sullivan, Maria's stepson, became a focal point in the investigation following the discovery of the love letters and text messages. As a troubled teenager grappling with his biological mother's death and Maria's arrival in his life, Tyler often acted out, displaying resentment towards Maria for assuming his mother's role. Despite his difficulties, he was intelligent and had a passion for music, spending hours playing his guitar with dreams of becoming a famous musician. On September 16, 2012, Tyler was brought in for questioning. Detectives Coco and Montez conducted the interview. Although Tyler appeared nervous, he tried to maintain his composure. The detectives began by probing his relationship with Maria. Tyler admitted that their relationship was strained but denied any involvement in her murder. When presented with the love letters, Tyler's demeanor shifted. He became visibly distressed and defensive, confessing to the affair and explaining that it had begun about a year prior. Tyler revealed that he had become obsessed with Maria, hoping they could be together if his father, David, was out of the picture. However, Maria's attempts to end the affair and focus on her marriage frustrated him. The detectives pressed Tyler for more information about the night of Maria's murder. Tyler claimed he was at a friend's house watching movies. The police checked his alibi, which proved weak and lacked solid evidence. Tyler's friend, Jake, confirmed he was with him but couldn't recall specific details or times. Tyler's reaction during the interrogation was a mixture of anger and fear. He was defensive and argumentative, vehemently denying any involvement in Maria's murder while expressing frustration over her ending their affair. The detectives noted his conflicting emotions, which fluctuated between sadness and anger. Though Tyler remained a prime suspect, the police needed more evidence to link him directly to the crime. They continued analyzing physical evidence from the crime scene and cross-referenced it with Tyler's statements. The detectives also reviewed neighborhood security camera footage, hoping to uncover inconsistencies in Tyler's alibi. The investigation into Tyler was intense and thorough. Detectives Coco and Montez were determined to uncover the truth. They knew Tyler had a motive but required concrete evidence to substantiate his involvement. The love letters and text messages were critical, but building a strong case was essential. The investigation was far from over, and the detectives continued piecing together the puzzle, with Tyler remaining a key figure in their quest for justice for Maria. Lily Beth Carter, the Sullivans' 25-year-old neighbor, also emerged as a person of interest. Known for her keen interest in true crime and her ongoing novel based on real events, Lily Beth was often seen taking notes and photos around the neighborhood. On September 17, 2012, the police brought Lily Beth in for questioning. Detectives Coco and Montez conducted the interview, finding Lily Beth calm and cooperative. She explained her passion for writing and her fascination with true crime, noting that she frequently visited Maria to discuss her novel and seek feedback. The detectives questioned Lily Beth about the morning she discovered Maria's body. She recounted the events in detail, describing how she found the studio door ajar and discovered Maria on the floor. Lily Beth shared her shock and horror and her immediate call to 911. Her account was consistent with the initial report. As the questioning continued, the detectives delved deeper into Lily Beth's relationship with the Sullivans. Lily Beth Carter revealed to the detectives that she frequently observed the Sullivan family dynamics and noted the tension between Maria and Tyler. She also mentioned that Tyler had exhibited suspicious behavior on several occasions, though she hadn't thought much of it at the time. When questioned about her interest in true crime, Lily Beth explained that her fascination was purely academic and creative. She was using her observations to create realistic characters and scenarios for her novel. She firmly denied any involvement in Maria's murder, maintaining that she was just a concerned neighbor. Lily Beth's calm and cooperative demeanor made it challenging for the detectives to determine whether she was concealing anything. Consequently, they decided to search her home for any evidence that might connect her to the crime. They discovered several notebooks filled with detailed observations about the neighborhood and the Sullivans, but nothing directly incriminating. Despite her cooperation, Lily Beth remained a person of interest. The detectives continued to monitor her closely, scrutinizing her story for any inconsistencies and reviewing neighborhood security footage for evidence that could either implicate or exonerate her. As the investigation into Lily Beth persisted, the detectives faced the challenge of distinguishing between her genuine interest in true crime and any potential involvement in Maria's death. The complexity of the case grew, but the police remained committed to uncovering the truth and seeking justice for Maria. On September 20, 2012, the investigation took a significant turn. Detective Martin Coco and Officer Julia Montez had gathered enough evidence to identify the murderer. The evidence pointed to Tyler Sullivan, Maria's 18-year-old stepson. Tyler's erratic behavior and conflicting emotions had initially raised suspicions, but it was the discovery of his fingerprints on the murder weapon that sealed his fate. Tyler had been known as a troubled teenager, struggling with his biological mother's recent death and harboring resentment towards Maria for taking her place. Despite his intelligence and passion for music, Tyler's feelings for Maria had morphed into a dangerous mix of hatred and desire. When Maria confronted Tyler about his failing grades and her decision to end their affair, Tyler's frustration and obsession drove him to violence. In a fit of rage, he attacked her with a heavy sculpture from her studio. The detectives reconstructed the events of that fateful day. Tyler had been at the house, waiting for the right moment. When Maria entered the studio, Tyler followed her, and their confrontation quickly escalated. In his fury, Tyler seized the sculpture and struck Maria multiple times, resulting in her death. With this evidence, the police prepared to arrest Tyler. On the evening of September 20th, they arrived at the Sullivan home. Tyler was in his room, listening to music on his iPod when the officers entered. Though surprised, Tyler did not resist arrest. He was handcuffed and taken to the police station for processing. David Sullivan, Tyler's father, was devastated by the news. The revelation that his son was responsible for such a brutal act tore the family apart and shocked the community. Neighbors and friends, who had known Tyler as a quiet but troubled teen, now saw him in a completely different light. During a press conference, the police detailed the evidence, explaining how Tyler's obsession with Maria and his inability to control his emotions led to the murder. The discovery of the sexually explicit letters and Tyler's fingerprints on the murder weapon were crucial in solving the case. As Tyler was led away, his reaction was a mix of anger and resignation. He understood the overwhelming evidence against him and the inevitable consequences of his actions. While Maria's friends and family were relieved that the murderer had been caught, the pain of losing Maria lingered. Tyler Sullivan's arrest brought some closure, but the path to justice was far from over. The trial of Tyler Sullivan commenced on November 5, 2012, in Summerville, South Carolina. The courtroom was packed with reporters, friends, and family members, all eager to hear the details of the case. Assistant District Attorney James Bliver, a seasoned and stern lawyer known for his tenacity, led the prosecution. He argued that Tyler's obsession with Maria, combined with his anger over the end of their affair, drove him to commit the murder. He presented the love letters, text messages, and forensic evidence linking Tyler to the crime, building a strong case that outlined Tyler's motive and actions. The defense was represented by public defender Sarah Jane Lemon, a compassionate and determined attorney with over 20 years of experience. She argued that Tyler was a troubled teenager deeply affected by his mother's death and struggling with mental health issues. Lemon contended that Tyler's actions were not premeditated but resulted from emotional turmoil and confusion. Throughout the trial, the emotional toll on Maria's family was evident. David Sullivan sat in the front row, his face etched with grief and disbelief. Friends and family members wept quietly as the details of Maria's tragic death were revealed. After several weeks of testimony and evidence, the jury deliberated for 2 days before returning with a verdict on December 3, 2012. Tyler Sullivan was found guilty of second-degree murder. The courtroom was silent as the judge read the verdict. Tyler's expression was blank as he listened to the verdict. The sentencing took place on December 10, 2012. Tyler was sentenced to 25 years in prison without the possibility of parole. The judge stated that while Tyler's actions were driven by emotional distress, the brutality of the crime warranted a severe punishment. The sentence aimed to provide justice for Maria and her family while acknowledging Tyler's troubled background. Maria's family had mixed reactions to the sentence. Some felt it was too lenient given the nature of the crime, while others believed it struck a fair balance between justice and compassion for Tyler's mental state. The community of Somerville was left to grapple with the aftermath of the tragedy, hoping to find some sense of closure. The trial and sentencing of Tyler Sullivan were widely covered by local media, including WCI and the Post and Courier. The case served as a sobering reminder of the impact of emotional and mental health issues and their devastating consequences. Following Tyler's sentencing, life in Somerville slowly began to move forward. The trial had been traumatic for everyone involved, leaving lasting impacts on the community. David Sullivan, struggling to cope with the loss of his wife and the imprisonment of his son, took a leave of absence from his job and sought counseling to deal with his grief and sense of betrayal. Though friends and neighbors provided support, David often felt isolated and decided to move to Charleston to start anew, away from the painful memories of Somerville. Tyler's adjustment to incarceration was also challenging. He was sent to a state correctional facility where he began receiving psychological counseling. The prison system offered educational programs, and Tyler enrolled in classes to complete his high school education while studying music theory, still clinging to his dream of becoming a musician. In the wake of the tragic events, Lilybeth Carter, the neighbor and true crime enthusiast, was deeply affected by the ordeal. She continued to work on her novel, now incorporating the harrowing experiences she had lived through. Despite the unwanted attention from the local media, including WCI and the Post and Courier, Lilybeth remained focused on her writing, finding solace in her creative work. Detective Martin Coco and Officer Julia Montez, the lead investigators on the case, received commendations for their diligent efforts in solving the crime. Their success reinforced their commitment to justice and underscored the importance of thorough police work. The case also highlighted the pressing need for increased support for mental health issues, both within families and the broader community. Life in Somerville gradually returned to a semblance of normalcy, but the memory of Maria Sullivan and the tragic events remained etched in the hearts of those who knew her. The town resolved to support mental health initiatives and honor Maria's legacy, creating a lasting tribute to her life. Thank you for listening to this episode of True Crime Case Files. The tragic story of Maria Sullivan reminds us of the complexities of human relationships and the dark paths obsession can lead us down. Join us next time as we explore another case in our pursuit of truth and justice. Stay safe.